We are so glad that you're going to be joining us this season for Red Dirt Review. We're going to have some really interesting, exciting people on to talk to you about sustainability and the purpose of what they're doing. Ray Kaderli has started the Hemp Build Network in Texas, and he is currently building a hempcrete house down there, and he also is the co-founder of the Hemp Build. So he is teaching people how to build hempcrete houses, and you can go down there for one of his classes. Part of it's online, the other part you have to actually go to hands-on. It's like 2 to 4 days, but he's going to be on to talk about what he's doing there. This season we'll also have James Johnson with Active Duty RX to talk about what he's doing there and the new formula and how that is going to affect our veterans and other people who have PTSD and things like that. We're going to have Ryan and Jordan Early on from American Wholesale Hemp and Blue Magic. We're going to talk about Pioneering Change, Ryan's podcast that he does on the PPN network. And also Jordan Early's EyeDentify collection, which I am right in the middle of an 8-week review of those products. And I can tell you that they are phenomenal. And I can't wait to give you a full review of each one of those products because they're very good. So I'm super excited about that. And we'll also have on Senator Connie Johnson to talk about cannabis in Oklahoma. She's kind of like the mother of cannabis in Oklahoma, so we want to have her on and talk about that. Emily Shelton with Ignite Justice will also be joining us to talk about some of the reform and things that need to happen here in Oklahoma. So this is Cannabis Janice with Red Dirt Review, advancing sustainability every day. And welcome to Red Dirt Review. With me today is Chili Mack. How are you doing, Chili?
Pretty good. About yourself?
I'm great. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm excited about your new products that's coming out and everything. We want to hear about what you've done, how you've gotten to the place, and a little bit about the cannabinoid system and what you have planned in the future. So,
okay. Well, a little background on me. I got into the cannabis industry in 2014.
Okay.
Left Oklahoma, went to Washington, acquired a license, couldn't move the license, and ultimately ended up working for a different company doing some product development, brand building, and 788 opportunity happened here. My partner said, hey, we have everything at home. Let's just go back. So we came back with our plan that we had for Washington, made some small edits. It was designed around flower, our genetics.
Okay.
We're actually breeders and growers before we're processors. A lot of people don't know that. And our brand was built around our genetics.
I see.
And the genetics were bred for, specific health reasons and, to help with, certain ailments and attributes, things like that. And when 788 happened, we figured everybody would, flood to be growers.
Yes, of
And
course.
we pivoted from the original plan of being a flower-based company to being a processed goods-based company. I have a culinary background. My partner's been a restaurateur for over 10 years. So we saw that as the gap in the market to kind of
Yes.
penetrate, make our mark, and go from there.
You've done a really great job.
Well,
Your
thank you very
products are really
much.
great. Go over and tell the people what products that you're offering, what you have, and maybe where they can find those.
Well, so, after I took a little bit of time off from production.
Okay,
I had a lot going on in life, and it was, one of those things where self-care was really important.
absolutely,
And being the, captain of a ship, like the captain has to be sound mind and body at all times. And
absolutely.
so, we were working with a different manufacturer that was making our products for us. I took a little bit of time off, and now I'm back 100%. And I'm going to be relaunching a couple of brands with very select SKUs.
Okay.
And then I'm also going to be launching a brand new brand that's a project I've been working on for a couple of years.
And can we hear what that is,
Sure.
or do you
So
want
the
to
the
reveal
project
that here on
the
Red Dirt
project
Review?
is Canna Tea. It's really not a secret.
I'm so
People have known
excited.
about it. I sampled the tea publicly in 2021, I think it was.
Okay.
But for me, it's all about, strategy and timing, right?
Yes.
I was in Walmart one day, and I'm looking in the quick beverage aisle right
Hmm.
when you first walk in,
Right.
and I start seeing all of the traditional brands with a hard version of their beverage. Like Sonic has the hard version of their ocean water, their cherry limeade. I
Right.
start seeing Arizona tea with their hard seltzers, and I'm like,
Hmm.
everybody is moving into this space.
Right.
And so I started researching the beverage space, and I saw that trend going that way. And I didn't want to do a juice. I didn't want to do a shot. I didn't want to do anything that the masses were doing.
Everybody else was
I
doing.
wanted to do something that was still healthy,
Yes.
and I could stay on that trend of health and wellness,
Perfect.
and jazz it up a little bit with it being driven by terpenes to help with mood and different.
So tell me, if we wanted to uplift our mood, what would we choose in a can of tea?
So we were talking off camera, and you said you're killing me with this. It really depends on the
Here we
consumer.
go. I wanted y'all
Yeah,
to hear
it,
this.
it it
It
really it
depends,
really
y'all,
depends
it
on the
depends
consumer.
on the consumer. He's saying that it depends on, we were talking off camera, and he's just such, I was just picking his brain. Sorry.
You're
I hope
good.
I left some.
You're fine.
I'm just like pick, 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 pick. But this guy's a genius, and he explained a lot of what people are missing here in filling up our cannabinoid system. So I'd like for him to explain what it is he's talking about our CB1 and CB2 receptors and how that all works.
Okay. So first off, everyone's endocannabinoid system is different. They function the same, but what they're actually doing is going to differ person to person.
Okay.
A
Based
person
on,
based on their physiological makeup. So if a person, and we're just gonna throw some randoms out here. I'm gonna use the same example that I had given you. If a person is overweight, diabetic or pre-diabetic, and maybe suffering from hypertension or arthritis or something along
mhm,
those lines, what their body is naturally producing is going to be completely different than someone that goes to the gym 3 times a week or does cardio, several times a week. The chemical internally, the chemicals that our body is going to be producing is going to differ. So there's some people who can't, consume the terpene pinene.
mhm.
It's too much for them. It makes them really racy, antsy. Same thing with
I'm kind of
myrcene.
like that with pinene.
Right.
What is that? Just
So, well,
what
pinene,
makes it
myrcene,
racy?
limonene, that's gonna vary person to person as well.
Okay.
Um, Me personally, limonene, beta caryophyllene, pinene, they're more uplifting for me.
Uh-huh.
Some people consume them, and it has the opposite effect. It's more relaxing for them.
Right.
Where their
Okay.
physiological makeup is different, the chemical compounds that their body is producing vary. So how that affects you is going to be different than how it affects me. Now,
Okay.
there
So
may
tell
be a
me.
lot of people who like limonene for that energetic push, for
Yes.
that appetite suppression, for that anti-inflammatory properties, right? But then there's other people who are, they can't use myrcene when myrcene is the primary cannabinoid or terpene for anti-inflammatory, antifungal, antivirals,
Yeah, I have found
antibacterial.
super success with myrcene.
Yep.
I love myrcene.
Yeah. So
It's
a lot
awesome.
what people are doing is they're treating the symptom instead of treating the root.
Okay, so how do we get them to flip the switch and start treating the root?
Well, it's really just reconditioning their mind.
Okay.
Just like anything else. When Coca-Cola comes out with a new formulation, they recondition our mind to accept that formulation, right? They
Okay.
do that by way of ads, informationals, whatever it may be.
Okay.
We have to do the same things, you know, with our consumers consciously. We have to do that with them to lead them there.
Okay.
Right now, we just have a market that's pretty much wide open, and everybody is doing their thing,
Yeah.
right? There's no true standard. There's
Right.
no rhyme or reason for a lot of things. There are people who do things that are completely off brand, and that doesn't benefit the consumer.
Right.
Um,
It's not medicinal.
well, it's not. It doesn't actually really have to be pitched as medicinal.
Okay.
The medicine is the medicine, regardless.
Regardless.
Regardless if we're consciously medicating. When people were smoking cannabis previously, they were doing it to calm down. They were doing it to deal with their anxiety. They were
Right.
doing it to relax their nerve. They were already medicating, but it wasn't legal medication, so it doesn't count. No. So it doesn't always have to be medicinally driven. It can be recreationally driven with medicinal attributes.
Okay.
And that's all a part of healthy living. You know what I
Yes,
mean? So
exactly.
it all plays hand in hand, and if people would really treat their conditions and not the symptoms,
So
that's
what
where
would you
they'll
recommend for
actually
someone to actually wants to try to treat their condition that has just
do an
been out there
assessment.
doing whatever?
They need to do a cannabinoid assessment.
Okay, and how would you do that?
There are very few people that actually do things like that. I would recommend people like Dr. Pepper Hernandez.
Okay.
I would recommend people like Amy Lee,
All
the
right.
boho health coach.
Yes, she's amazing. I love Amy
recommend
Lee.
people like Jerry from Silverleaf.
I absolutely love
Mm-hmm.
them. I was just talking to a fellow earlier about them and what all they do there,
Mm-hmm.
and they're phenomenal people. Silverleaf, we love you.
I would
I love you.
recommend the people from Bison and Rose.
Okay.
I mean,
I don't
like
know them,
they're
but
scientists.
that's
Like
awesome.
they're scientists. Like that's what they do. They're medicinally driven. Like
Okay.
those are the people who I see making a conscious effort. And I mean, don't get me wrong, there's more,
Sure.
but those are the standouts to me,
Yeah. Okay.
that are really making a difference with education and
Yes.
helping people find the actual medication that they need. Because, you know, a person may um, full spectrum and broad spectrum. Like there's so much misconception
So much.
about that, right?
Yeah, touch on that for a second.
Well, full spectrum and broad spectrum. So distillate. Distillate technically is broad spectrum. The only thing that's missing from distillate, quote unquote, is the terpenes, right?
Okay.
Full spectrum is the entire cannabinoid suite of the broad spectrum with the terpenes included into that. Well, depending on what that product is, what the levels of those terpenes are, that may be counteractive or counterproductive to your treatment plan, right?
Right.
When you're removing that and using a broad spectrum product and then reintroducing terpenes based on traditional levels that affect this, traditional levels that are beneficial for this, actually replicating the strain profile of the real strain that everyone's trying to copy. So
Yes.
I'll give you an example. Granddaddy Perp.
Okay.
Granddaddy
That's a
Perp
great one.
was a strain that the original, you know, way back when, those original strains were used more as a sedative, right?
Yeah,
They're
that
high
stuff
in
knocks me
pinene,
out.
they're high in myrcene, they're high, you know, right? And those are the
Granddaddy Burps.
terpenes that relax you. They're high in linalool. Those are the
Yes.
things that relax you.
Mhm.
I can go pick up Granddaddy Perp right now, and it's more of a hybrid that leans more sativa-like. Well, it's because they're growing things in conditions that weren't conducive to that strain.
I see.
So they're changing the natural growing environment, therefore they're
Changing
changing
the terp
the terp
profile.
profile, which means they're changing the desired effect
Oh,
or the
my
result
goodness.
of what that may be. And it can be simple things as humidity. It
So
can be
this,
simple
so
things as
this
temperature.
granddaddy perp won't be the same as this granddaddy perp.
Correct.
This, because
Everybody in this room can
everybody's
have the
doing it
same
different.
cut of granddaddy perp,
Hmm.
and we can go into our own grow environments and we will grow, how many people in here? 6. We
Hmm.
will grow 6 different
Different.
variants of that particular genetic,
That is
and it's
crazy,
off the
isn't it?
same mother plant,
Isn't
just
that?
from environmentals.
That is crazy.
So when you change those things, you're muddying the waters, right? You're monkeying with
Well,
it.
it's really muddy, isn't it?
But
Right
when you
now.
take that authentic profile, that authentic terp profile
Yeah.
from that strain that all of these others were based off of, now you're taking it back to the basics.
I see.
And then you're allowing people to see what works for them and
Mm-hmm.
what doesn't work for them.
Right. Awesome. Well, that has been an education.
Yeah, it's there's a lot to
101.
it. There's definitely a lot to it. People treat it like a business. That's fine. But at the end of the day, it's it's about health and wellness, regardless if we're
Absolutely. And
purposefully,
that's what we're here to
trying to
talk about
medicate.
is health and wellness. And we appreciate you coming on today, Chili. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for educating our people today.
You're welcome.
Hey y'all, Cannabis Janice here from Red Dirt Global Enterprises, hosting Red Dirt Review. And today's guest, I'm so excited to have you meet him and hear him speak on this subject of hemp and hempcrete. It's Ray Kaderli. He is the founder of the Hemp Build Network, the Hemp Build School, and he serves as a president of the U.S. Hemp Building Association. So let's welcome Ray to our podcast. How are you, Ray?
Oh, I'm fantastic. Excited to be here. Thanks for
Yes,
having
we're
me.
so excited for you to be here. So tell the audience, because they probably don't know what hempcrete is. Hempcrete is so cool. So before I just butcher it to pieces, I'm gonna let him, the expert, tell you all about it.
Well, hempcrete, yeah, it's for for the better purposes of explanation, it's primarily insulation. Hempcrete is actually a terrible name for it because that implies that it's strong like concrete, but it is strong, but it's not so much of a load-bearing product. Now, the reason it's good insulation is because all any insulation is pockets of air that keep a thermal transfer from taking place. And so because these hemp plants grow so tall so fast, they have a lot of air pockets in the woody part of the structure. And then when you mix that with lime and water, then it comes back in together and makes a nice solid monolithic wall. But the air pockets are what make it good insulation. And so then when you take the woody part of the plant, and now this is on the fiber grain side of things. Now on the cannabinoid production, the stems and stalks of your CBD and your THC plants can go to hempcrete production, but they're not typically used right now because the processing equipment to take it and make that into something that would be used in a building material is a little bit, it's not viable in the marketplace. Plus, the stems and stalks of your CBD plants have a little bit of fluctuation to where it's not as uniform as what's desired to going into a building material. Now, there are some that are using that, and they're what I call cooks in the kitchen, making up really good products on a day-to-day basis. But for the most part, when you hear about hempcrete, it's the fiber grain varieties that are separate from the cannabinoid varieties, and that's what's getting used in your building materials. And so there's a lot of dots on the paper to connect, and then that's a good introduction to what hempcrete is.
Nice. So primarily you're going to be using this as insulation. And so I understand that you're building a hempcrete house. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about what parts of that house are used with the hempcrete? And where are you along in that? And how are the, I guess, the building codes, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I understand that those have changed to accept hemp building a little bit more. Can we talk about that a little bit too?
Yeah, so I'll talk about the codes first, and then if anybody wants to look at the written version of those codes, you can go to the U.S. Hemp Building Association's website, and they're up there.
What is that website? Do you know?
Is ushba.org.
USHBA, is that correct? USHBA.org.
Yes.
That's the U.S. Hemp Building Association's website. You can go on there and check some of these out.
And that's the trade association that advocates for everything as far as materials and methods utilizing industrial hemp as a building material. And those building codes that passed last fall are what are on there. And then now those are in the IRC, the International Residential Code.
Nice.
And then since they've been passed, now they're being adopted. And then so that'll be implemented into place. And so what codes are, yeah, it is great. And it gives us a lot of momentum to really come on strong. So we knew that this modern twist on an ancient technology was a good, sustainable, healthy building system.
Yes.
That's what motivated me to look at it. And I'll talk a little bit about the house that we're doing in San Antonio, because my motivation is I'm a real estate broker and investor. And then I was brutally pragmatic at all of the issues that I wanted to see in a building material. I've also done a lot of fix and flip, and I knew a lot of the problems that current building materials had in a long-term type of scenario. And so what I did when I was looking for materials that were both long-lasting and efficient, I also saw the Farm Bill pass in 2018,
yes.
And I knew that was a big deal. And
Huge
so I started
deal.
watching. Yeah, it was like an all-you-can-eat entrepreneurial buffet. It's like we just discovered trees and cotton
Right.
in one plant, and then now all the
love
things that we can do with it. And so, so as the entrepreneurs were rushing in to find out all the different opportunities were there, I started researching that as a building material. And then there was very little information, and then there was a little bit more, and then there was a little bit more. And then fast forward, I was at a point where I was comfortable building a house for myself with my own money to explore this and test it out. I was confident that it would work enough for what our family was doing to build these houses as investment. Now, this is before the code was passed. And so I'm building in San Antonio. It's an urban area.
Right.
And then we had to get permits. And so how I got the permits was I had an engineer stamp our plans. And so to be insulation, a building material really needs two things. It needs an R value, which this does,
Okay.
and it needs a fire rating, which this has. And so on a scale of 1 to 10, as far as fire goes, this is almost a 0. It's about as good as you can get
So
as
it's
far as
basically
fire goes.
fireproof. Would you say it's fire
I don't say
resistant or fireproof?
I say damn near proof.
Damn near
And
proof.
so it's,
That's awesome.
yeah. And so the legal is fire resistant, but if you want to throw in darn near fireproof,
Yeah.
I think that's a more accurate way.
And isn't it bug
here
proof as well? Isn't it pest proof?
Yeah, and so the real hero of the hempcrete is the lime that you mix in with it, because it was limestone,
Okay.
and then you take it out of the ground, run it through a process, and now it's a powdery material that we can mix with water and other ingredients like the hemp
Nice.
hurd back into where it'll regain its form and turn back into a stone. And so when you mix this stuff up, it looks a lot like oatmeal cookie dough with a little bit too much oatmeal.
Okay.
That's the consistency when you mix it
Little
up
chunky.
wet. And so you can, yeah, if you can imagine that, where you're making a really big batch of oatmeal, batch after batch, and then you put it into a wall until you have a wall, you're going to be real accurate on your imagination.
Now, is it
And
dumped
so
into
that's
the
the
wall? I'm
consistency.
sorry to interrupt you. Is it dumped into the wall or is it sprayed into the wall? How do you put it in there?
Yes to both. There's the older method, which is the cast in place or cast situ, where you mix it up and then you place it by hand. So you've got the mixer, you put it into a bucket, you carry the bucket over to the wall, you dump it out into the wall, and then you tamp it into place gently, and then you repeat that a few thousand times, and you've got a house. Now, it's not load bearing, so you still have to have a frame or anything like that to hold it in place. But what you get at the end of the day is you get a nice insulation within that frame.
Nice.
And so now that's doing it by hand. And anybody who's ever worked on a job site where you're doing it by hand, you become an inventor to find out an easier way to do that.
Yes, sir.
And the two other ways to do that are mechanically applying the hempcrete into a work zone, and then that can be done with a spray scenario. And there's a couple of different sprays that do that. Some mix it at the nozzle when it's being blown out, and then the others pre-mix it, and then they pneumatically convey it from the mixer to the work zone. And so the way I describe that, the one that's the most prevalent in the US right now is the ER Easy system. And then I own one of those. And the best way I describe it is, we all remember shooting spit wads at a wall when we were kids.
Yeah.
And it was fun to, blow the paper onto the wall and then it would stick.
Right.
Well, this is like having a very large machine blow spit wads onto the wall until you have a wall. And it's like Tim Allen got a hold of the process, and then now
I love that analogy.
this thing has like it's got a 4-inch air cannon that just shoots this stuff at the wall.
Oh, wow.
And so it is it saves a lot of time and a lot of labor.
That's awesome.
And it's a really great way to do that. So that's the second way. So the first way was cast in place by hand. The second way was spraying it, and then the ER Easy is the most prevalent spray system in the U.S. right now. There's several others that have been seen, and there's even a gentleman in Austin that's working on making his own proprietary scenario. So there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen coming up with better ways to do this.
Nice.
So it's really exciting to watch what's coming on the horizon. But the last way is some sort of prefabrication, whether it's a block or a panel, to where
That's what I've
that
seen
hempcrete,
more.
the hempcrete can be mixed up, made into whatever it's going to be into the wall, whether it's a block or a prefabricated panel, and then you're not inhibited by freezing weather or the time for it to cure before you can plaster it. And so those are the three main systems: cast in place, spray applied, or some sort of prefabrication like a block. And they each have their pluses and minuses. And so it's just really something to know about where you're building, when you're building, what's your target? Are you doing a renovation project or new construction? And then you can make decisions and pick the best system that suits your project. And so that's what we help support, and people make those decisions. Sometimes you can combine the technologies, like you'll have a block and then you'll spray up on the outside of it.
Right.
And that saves you time because you don't have to wait for your plaster to cure.
Nice. Well, that is very exciting news for all of us because building materials have skyrocketed, and this could be a very, very sustainable. And over the long term, what I'm hearing is that we need engineers to create machines to process hemp, and we need more farmers to farm hemp. And the way I understand it is that every 4 months you can get a harvest of hemp. Is that correct?
Yeah, it takes about 120 days to go to maturity, and then that's on the fiber grain varieties. And then what hemp can be is that if you drive through the Midwest and you're in corn and beans country, so it's either you're growing corns or beans that year, this can go in as a rotation. And so what
Love
hemp
it.
does, as far as like the stewardship of the soil,
Yes.
is it acts a lot like a legume, and it'll bring stuff out of the atmosphere and feed that soil profile to where now you're better growing your corn because you grew hemp, and it works a lot like a cover crop that way, but it's still a
Nice.
good cash crop. Same with cotton. Same with cotton. Cotton takes a lot out of the soil, and then
Yes.
cotton's still a good material, and it's better if you grow it in a rotation with hemp. And so what the farmers are doing is there's a lot of test plots that have been grown, and then they're dialing in the genetics that grow for the off takes that they're taking, because you can grow this for the purpose of a textile grade fiber,
Sure.
or you can grow it for a grain crop, or you can grow it. Some people are growing actually for the herd. Now in France, where they've been doing this, several years longer than us, they're growing for the fiber, and then the herd is a byproduct.
Nice.
But here in the US, the demand for the building material has been pushing things. And so there's farmers that are growing and processing for the building material and that herd that comes out. So the herd is the woody part that's the middle of the plant.
I see.
And then the fiber, which is called the bast fiber, it's bark is not the correct term, but it's the outside layer of the plant.
Okay.
And so if you go up and then you break the stem, there's the little fiber that's the long stringy part. That's what goes for textiles and a lot of other industrial applications like car door panels and dashes, different things like that.
So we can use hemp for everything, basically. Like this shirt right here, this was made from hemp, and it's so comfortable. And I feel like the more you wash it, the softer it gets, you know?
Oh yeah, the hemp fabric is
And it doesn't wear
fantastic.
out. It will last forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. So I'm super excited about what you're doing down there. Tell the people about your school real quick and where they can like sign up to go learn about that.
Yeah, so the school that we're launching is a culmination of an effort of all the key professionals that I sought out when I had questions on my project.
Nice.
And so now that I've got a project coming on and I've got a few projects under my belt, I get called on to speak on this topic a lot and do workshops. And so everybody's coming together in a mastermind group, and that's hempbuildschool.com, and that launches here towards the end of August.
Nice.
And so it'll be going for several months. And then what it'll be is it's a lot like you went to a university bookstore and you bought a textbook for the semester,
Okay.
and all you got was the table of contents and then a bunch of blank pages. And then the actual mastermind group itself will write the textbook. And
Nice.
so what we're going to do is really focus on these new professionals, the engineers, the architects, the builders, the subcontractors that want to go into this as an extension of their profession, or maybe it's a new career change to where they're coming into this space to where they can get all the technical support and love and care that will make them be successful, so that they don't have to have, they're not going into this blind, and they don't have to have a lot of those questions to where you're paying, everybody a consulting fee. You can do that all at once in one space, and then now you're better for it. And then those ideas can culminate in a resource material that now will be available long term. And so that's the school, and then
That
it's
would be so
launching, and we're going to
great.
have some hands-on aspect. Mhm.
That would
It's
be great
exciting.
to integrate into the university's construction sciences program. You need to come up here
Yeah,
to OU and
we've
tell
done.
them what they need to do up here.
Yeah, I've done so. I've spoken twice and done some workshops at Texas A&M on their campus,
Nice.
and then they've got a lot of grant money. I know Mizzou has some labs that are incubating. I know there's some good stuff that came out of Nebraska with the load bearing block, and then so a lot of the university and the academic systems are coming online
Yes.
with curriculum that can be that.
Beautiful.
But right now, for the houses that are ready to be built, if you want to build one tomorrow,
Yes.
you can go for it. And then that's who we're hitting right
I
now
love it.
while we come into the university systems. And it's just been an overwhelming positive support of everybody who's seen this, because it checks all the check boxes.
Yeah,
It's
of
what we
course.
want.
It just
Yeah.
makes sense. It just makes sense. So thank you for all that you're doing to help our earth be more sustainable. and to help our people, learn how to do
Yeah.
these things and to create a world that we can be proud of and live in and pass on to our children and grandchildren. So thank you, Ray. Thank you so much for coming on today. We appreciate you and appreciate all the hard work that you're putting in.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So this is Cannabis Janice, and we're out with Red Dirt Review, advancing sustainability every day.